This is the Recover 2020 Glock brace. It is designed to give you a more stable shooting platform with a handgun, and I bought it to test and see if it would improve my shooting. I'm a believer in the brass facts school of thoughts when it comes to PDWs. I don't think they really have any place in our current world, but they may unfortunately have a place in our future world. These photos are just some of the ways that I've had the brace set up while I was testing it. Throughout the rest of this video, I will go into some of the ways that I tested it, my reasonings for those tests, and ultimately my conclusion. If you don't feel like watching the whole video, bottom line, I think the brace is worth buying if your pistol shooting is not very good. However, if you would consider yourself to be an average or above average pistol shooter, I don't think that this brace has much to offer you. These targets that I'm showing here are what started my interest in testing this brace. The groups that I was getting out of it were not satisfactory at all. You can see here, even at 10 yards, it's shooting much bigger groups than I would have liked. And when I compared it to my Zev, my groups were much worse. At 25 yards, the groups that the Zev was holding were maybe 4 inches, 5 inches, which is largely just due to my inadequacy as a shooter. But the 2020 brace with the Glock 34 was shooting 8, 9, 10-inch groups. 25 yards, 10-inch groups is completely unacceptable. So that is what began the testing. I tested the brace through a variety of different drills that I shot against myself. I would shoot the drill with the Recover 2020 brace with a Glock 34 and a Steiner MPS, and then I would shoot it again with my Zev OZ9, which has a Trijicon RMR mounted on top of it. I would then compare my performance from one drill to the next, and after doing that a couple of times, I would average everything out and get a feel for how I was actually doing. In order to set a baseline, I fired a handful of 5-shot groups out of 2 different ARs. One of them is an 11.5-inch LMT upper. The other one is a homebrew upper with a 20-inch white oak barrel. Each group was fired at 50 yards off of a sandbag that I rested on 2 fence posts. I shot 55 grain mixed 223 and 77 grain SIG OTMs. I wasn't super happy with these, honestly. I should have been able to hold a tighter group, and maybe under different circumstances I could have shot better, but this is the baseline we're running with for the video. What you're seeing here are the results of that accuracy testing firing off the fence post with the Glock 34 in the Recover brace. I fired with and without the suppressor and with suppressors in various lengths. And what you'll notice is that the groups are not consistent. Some of them are better than others, but it's almost completely random when a group opens up or when it is actually able to hold relatively tight. When I first started this testing, I thought that the suppressor was part of the problem, and I thought that changing suppressors or changing configurations of the suppressor might have an effect on my point of impact because the groups were so big. What I eventually found out is that it was not the suppressors, it was the brace itself. You'll see in this clip it probably looks a little goofy, but I'm pushing and pulling on the brace in different directions as I fire this group. What's happening is the pistol itself is shifting around in the brace, and the optic is mounted to the brace, not the pistol. So if the pistol and obviously then the barrel of the pistol are moving relative to the sight that you're aiming with, your group is going to be atrocious, and this is what mine ended up looking like. Yes, that is an almost 20-inch group at 50 yards. At this point, I realized that my issues were fundamental to the design of the brace, and it wasn't something that I was going to be able to fix. So I shifted my testing to see if it would enable me to still shoot better than I could with a handgun, even though there was going to be that flex between the pistol and the optic. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Dickens drill, but for everyone who isn't, It is named after a young man who stopped a mass shooting in a mall by landing 8 out of 10 shots at 40 yards with his concealed carry handgun. The drill requires the same out of the shooter. You have 15 seconds to score a minimum of 8 hits out of 10 shots fired on a USPSA-style silhouette target at 40 yards. I fired the drill multiple times with the Glock 34 mounted into the recover brace, with the Glock 34 removed from the brace, with my rifle, with the Zev OZ9, and then also with my Glock 19 that is just iron-sighted. After I shot all the drills, I put all of the results into an Excel spreadsheet that I based off of the T-Rex Arms Range Day app. I QC'd these results against the app and made sure that all of the math checked out and everything was good to go. Obviously, the rifle gave me the highest average hit factor score, but the brace being second was actually a little bit of a surprise to me. The fact that both pistols scored so similarly makes me believe that it's not a fluke. Maybe I could test it more and get a different result, but the brace did actually improve my shooting. At 40 yards, at least according to the hit factor, I saw an improvement. That said, I don't believe that the extra bulk of the brace makes it worth it over just carrying a handgun. I'll put up some of the targets here, and I think you'll agree with me. Even though the hit factor may have been higher with the brace, if you look at the total number of misses and you look at the general shot placement on the targets, it isn't that big of a difference. I think the biggest thing that the brace gave me was confidence to shoot faster. And if you look at my overall average times, I was quicker with the brace. The next thing that I did was develop my own little drill. It involved shooting steel and paper at various distances from about 7 yards out to 50 yards. And then I would go and run multiple laps of my backyard to tire myself out, to simulate being under duress. And then I shot the drill again to see how my performance changed and to see if maybe when I was tired, if the brace would make up for some of the lack of performance that I might notice on the pistol. This next clip is me doing a dry run walkthrough of that drill and then shooting it with a rifle to set a baseline. Bill drill, plate rack 1, 2, 3, 4, run to the tree, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, run to the fence post, 5 shots on the orange silhouette, run to this pieces of metal right here, 2 to the head, 1 to the top plate rack. Done. 1, 2, 3, 4. Simulated to the steel. Five on steel. All right. Next, I will play the clips from the Recover 2020 braced Glock 34 and the Zev, and then I'll show all the results at the end. And actually, since I can't holster the Recover, I'm gonna start with the pistol in hand. Here we go.
miss. Come on. That's 4, 5. Where's it done? All right. That's 3, 4, 5. Finally. Last round. Wow. That was awful.
So I think you'll notice the issue that I have with this brace from that last clip. I just was hammering away at that little piece of steel and could not get my 5 hits to move on. That variable pressure on the brace changing where the shot hits is enough to really cause issues once you start to get out at distance, and that 50-yard shot was just too much for the brace. I think it took me over 30 rounds to finally get 5 hits, but with the pistol, I was able to do it in, I think, less than 10. So that right there is the crux of the issue. In these next couple clips, you'll see I'm kind of winded. I had just run 5 or 6 laps of my backyard. I wasn't doing it at a dead out sprint, but I was hustling, and I used that to hopefully negatively impact my shooting.
All right, here we go. Turn the dot down a little bit. I think I may have shot that better than I did the first time.
Unexpectedly, I did. I shot it better the second time. I think it was because I had warmed up a little bit in my shooting, and I didn't have as many malfunctions as I did in the first run.
Go. Malfunction. All right. skipping.
Okay, so this screen here is the same Excel calculator that I used on the Dickens drill applied to the drill that I came up with. You'll notice some of the hit factors are negative and hit factor doesn't go negative, but I decided to just leave it so that it gives a frame of reference. I think it'll also stand out how poorly the recover performed. Negative 2.56, everything else was right around 0 other than my rifle. I shot at 1.22, but the recover, just due to how many rounds I burned at that small piece of steel, its score absolutely tanked. And what I think this drives at compared to the Dickens drill is that once you start to stretch the range out, somewhere between 40 and 50 yards, the recover brace just kind of falls apart. When you look at the testing that I did in the beginning of the video and how well the recover brace could hold a group, and then also take into account the drills that I just shot with it, I think most of you will agree that it's not worth the additional bulk and lack of concealability. However, if somebody is just starting out shooting a pistol or really doesn't feel comfortable with the mechanics, it might make sense for them to use something like this. They'll have the same issues that I did with the groups opening up at distance and maybe a little bit of zero shifting, but shooting a pistol is really, really hard, and I am by no means an expert. But I think somebody, like I said, that's just starting out or somebody that would consider themselves below average at pistol shooting, this brace has a place for them and can provide that little bit of extra stability to really help them improve their shooting. So all of that said, if anyone is looking to buy a lightly used Recover 2020 brace for Glock 17, let me know. I have one. Other than that, I learned that I need to shoot my pistol more than I already do. I learned that I need to start running again, unfortunately. And I learned that hit factor scoring is not the end all be all. It doesn't tell the whole story in and of itself. I know that when I first found out about the Recover brace, I tried to do some research online and I had a really hard time finding in-depth reviews. There were a lot of unboxing videos, there were a lot of people just saying they thought it was cool, but I had a hard time finding footage of people actually using them. I know Brassfax and I believe Hop both did videos on them, and those were the only two that I saw with any real substance, but I figured that people might be interested to see what I learned in my testing, and it might help them make a little bit more educated choice before they make a purchase. If you guys watched all the way to the end of this video, I'm amazed, but I appreciate it, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you.